I love food, but I don't know a lot about how it gets from the farm to my table. I didn't know there was food technology back then.
If you're not have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, or if you're not, then
That's
engineer
all
at
Asians.
least.
That's all.
You totally understand, right?
Today's episode is all about food. There's been wars, there's been COVID, there's been extreme weather conditions. Supply chains have been disrupted. There's a lot of interesting trends happening.
One of the trend now in the food industry, actually, like functional beverage, a product that related to boosting your energy, maintaining or increasing your focus, make your skin brighter, calming your anxiety, make you sleep better. All these functional beverage products is already took over around 20% of the market value in the whole global food market. We have this herbal medicine we call jamu, which is a blend of different kind of spices and herbs, which now categorized as superfoods.
As a consumer, I want to understand when a product is labeled as organic, what does it even mean in the food industry? I didn't know there was food technology back then.
Me too.
I didn't
That's
even
kind of
know it
like
existed.
I am actually literally one out of like the whole of my high school that went to food technology. Because if you're not have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, or if you're not, then
That's
engineer
all
at
Asians.
least.
That's all
You
Asians.
totally understand, right? Yeah, doctor, engineer. If you like study science first when you're like in high school,
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't know.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna start.
Yes.
Hi everyone, welcome to She Talks Business, another episode from Bali. Today's episode is all about food. Food is such a personal thing for everyone. We engage with it every day, but it's also a super interesting time in the food and beverage industry because of everything that's been happening. There's been wars, there's been COVID, there's been extreme weather conditions. And so supply chains have been disrupted. There's a lot of interesting trends happening. There's a lot of big words and trendy words that we keep hearing about organic food, sustainability, so on and so forth. And we thought that this would be a great opportunity to speak to somebody who not only has deep understanding of the supply chains in the food and beverage industry, but is also extremely passionate about sustainability, organic food, etc. So super excited to have you with us, Tassa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanya. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Really happy. We connect briefly a few weeks ago, and then now I'm here with you.
And I'm extremely excited because I think I love food, but I don't know a lot about how it gets from the farm to my table.
Yes.
And all the things that we read on, the labels and all of that. Like we don't know a lot about it, even though we would love to eat healthy and so on and so forth.
Correct.
But starting with your own journey, you did your bachelor's in food tech at a time when no one knew food tech existed. And then, I don't want to get this wrong, you were head of corporate quality at Big Tree Farms.
Yes, correct.
Which is like the go-to provider for raw food products like cacao and coconut sugar, etc.
Correct.
Then you were director operations for Archipel Coffee, which is known for healthy, ethically sourced alternative to artificially flavored coffees.
Yes.
I might want to know a little bit about that as well.
Yeah.
You also consult with Gourmet Pro for anyone, for instance, who wants to launch into Indonesia, source products and ingredients and so on and so forth. And now you've launched Thrive Food Consulting. Why are you so passionate about this industry? That's my first question. And then also tell us a little bit about what you do at Thrive Food.
Yeah. Okay. So at the very beginning, I'm an Asian kid, as you know. You sort of like, once you graduate from the uni, you sort of like, okay, the path to go to the world, to the professional world, is just like, go find a job that is based on the thing that you studied, right?
Yeah.
And then the opportunity, once I graduated, family company by the time need to build a facility to bottle the mineral water. So fresh graduate doesn't have any experience in anything, and then I have to manage this project, which is like, okay, how to lay outing this empty warehouse into become a production facility, how to make sure that I comply with the regulatory stuff to running this factory. So and it just, there are so many dynamic things, and just to create a bottle of water that you see in any, like, I don't know, convenience store anywhere, right? So then it's kind of like very interesting. The second opportunity, then I have this opportunity to build a quality system in American company registered in Indonesia, and by the time they introducing this a new alternative sweetener, in which it's a coconut sugar, the thing that I know from, I don't know, since I was like kid, like it's a coconut sugar that probably like my mom use it to cook at home, that I get it like from traditional market, they ship it to States. It's something's kind of like, oh wow. And when I learned about the whole process, it took like thousands of farmers, like years in the making, to bring this wisdom, traditional wisdom of Indonesia, go out. And they are by that time the position as, I think, top 3 market leaders, like in the States. So it's pretty huge. So then it just, makes my eyes open for so many different aspects in a food world, especially related with organic, specialty ingredient, ethical sourcing, sustainability. And after 7 years in the company, I sort of try to slow down a little bit, take time for myself, and then I create Try Food Consulting, just because some colleagues, some networks asking about questions that related with food industry. So, and different type of products, different type of process. So it's kind of like a creative side of me being provoked. And it makes me always learning about something, because it's always a new, different thing. I think it's a really interesting thing to somehow bridging the needs between the producer sides to the consumer sides. So that.
Amazing. Okay. I have a lot of questions, like I was telling you before we hit the record button. Like I have a lot of questions to ask. But I think broadly, I want our conversation to be around 2 themes.
Yes.
One is from the consumer
Point of
view, right? Like, what does organic mean? Why, all of those, these trendy buzzwords that we keep hearing. And then obviously also from a business perspective in terms of what goes into putting a product out and so on and so forth. How big is the market, etc. So we'll start with some of the trends that you're seeing. And you mentioned organic food already. As a consumer, I want to understand, what does organic, when a product is labeled as organic, what does it even mean in the food industry?
So when we're talking about like organic, in here we talk about an organic certified products, right? It means that product is processed using a practice. When we talk about agricultural farming practices, that basically taking care every single aspect in its ecosystem, not only the environmental but also like the people. And when we talk about clean farming practices, it's not only about like do not using fertilizer or do not using pesticide. It's also about water conservations that you use. It's also the amount of the land that you use. It's also about the access of, let's say, a cattle can have when they grow, right? So it's also about, let's say, even you use a certain type of fertilizer, synthetic, there is a regulations that basically control how the maximum dose or the type of synthetic fertilizer that you can use that will not going to give, let's say, a negative impact to the environment. So talk about a soil when it took around 3 years for a soil to, let's say, get back to like in health condition, like after you just having or applied any conventional farming system, like using just a simple fertilizer and a simple like pesticide. So that's quite like a long term to do in between until you can farm or plant something in that area, and then later the fruits that you harvested, anything that you harvested from that area, it can considered or labeled or certified as organic. So it took a lot of different effort, a lot of different aspect as well. I know the words organic, natural in the label, sustainable. I think majority of the product using this, probably as a clickbait as well. Sometimes they think like, well, as long as it just like, like it grows, it's fresh, growly fresh in the farm, I can just like put it like naturally or organic. It's not always like that, because it does take time for a land or a soil that used to be used as a conventional farming method to get back health again. Like it's not just as is, and then you can directly say it like organic.
So when I go to the grocery store and I specifically go and pick up something which is organic, is it actually worth it? Because the price tag is usually higher.
Yeah, correct. So when we talk about worth it, we know that if it's organic certified, then definitely it came from a clean farming practice where there are no heavy residue of pesticides or fertilizer that basically for a certain age group, especially like children's or pregnant women, they are usually a little bit more sensitive with like heavy metals accumulations in the body. When we talk about, is there any medical scientific backup or research towards this? There are several medical or scientific studies that already conducted, but not yet really like how I can say that shows, oh, this is a black and white result. You eating like organic food, certified organic food, is better than the non-organic certified food, just because people that usually eating the organic certified food, they already have a better or maintain a healthy lifestyle. So they do or have a better like immune system compared than the conventional eater, let's
So
say.
the relationship between organic food and health is not clear.
It's not
simply
really
because
correct.
there's people who choose organic food also have a healthier lifestyle.
Correct. Even at the moment, I read somehow a scientific report. The European Commission actually still working on a research to find, like how I can say that, to create more scientific medical studies, because as they said, it cannot just be affected just within like one factor. There are so many different factors, and they have to like consider all of it. And so again, as I mentioned, I think of course it helps, because let's say we're talking about cadmium, it's one of like heavy metals that or a residue that usually used like in fertilizer. We don't want that in our body. And with consuming something that is not contain cadmium, of course, then it's not adding like the amount in our body as well. So that.
Right. So you're saying that the higher price point is somewhat still worth it.
It's somewhat still worth it.
Yeah, but there's no... It's difficult to say.
It's difficult to say, because I really think the higher price point is just because by the time it's still, how I can say that, it's still very limited, the people that working on or doing any organic farming. I think the more volume, the more companies, the more producers, the more farmings adopting this clean farming practice, then the whole process to maintain everything can also be like decreased, right? So basically, the point is to actually make healthy food affordable for anyone, so anyone can reach it. And actually, why people use like pesticide and fertilizer anyway. I think it's to boost the production, the output production, right? The capacity.
Right.
Why? Because people just keep consuming more and more and more. So
Yeah.
that's the very first the trigger like in of industrial era, because people just consuming more. So I really think if people can change a little bit their like habit with just consume everything in a balance, just as enough, for their nutritions. I'm a believer in a balanced diet as well. I eat everything. Not yet a plant-based. I try to incorporate it like majority portions of my meal with like fresh veggies and everything. But I think the point is more into like balance. Just have it enough. So then there are no factors that can triggers overproductions,
Right. And are there any specific red flags? So if I go to
Yep.
a grocery
Yep.
store, are
Yep.
there certain products that I can right away say these aren't healthy at all and I should avoid? Is
Yeah.
there something on the label? Is
Yeah.
there general certain kinds of
Yeah.
food?
Yeah.
Maybe how they position them
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
store?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know these are the things I can avoid? Even if it's hard to choose the best thing, what are the things I can avoid, or like what are those red flags?
Well, basically, it's the best to consume is the food with the less ingredients. I mean, that's true. The ingredients that you can only pronounce. I think that's a really like one simple rule also like for me. But to know with like sustainable, organic, local, all these things that people, let's say, put in their label, in the social media era, I think, everyone is there in their Instagram, in their TikTok, in their Facebook. It's easy to just like, let's say, when you see on the shelf, and then you can see the brand, you can Google them, find them in Instagram, and then see that whether like their communication, your just like mass communication is really represent that message they put in the label. Are they really like, let's say, do local sourcing? Are they really working with like a first-hand farmers? Are they really like do a lot of different programs related with sustainability? Because many of them really like for a company or for the brands that do not have really pure intentions, their label and their social media can be so different.
So that's like the first
I think that's
thing that you can do.
the easiest, because everyone can put anything in the label. Of course, there are regulations. We're back to the regulatory, like every certain countries. Example, Indonesia, like in order for you to be able to state it organic certified, you have to really show them when you register your product the certification and then the pesticide residue lab test as well, like for certain like periods.
Right.
And if it's a certification, organic certification, then it has to be from international acknowledged body as well,
Right.
based on a certain standard of organic certification, right? So, but then in the actual practice, not everyone really, let's say, follow the regulation, and some of them perhaps do not put that in their label when they register their product, but then the label that they print for their packaging can say different. This is a very well known or practice. A lot of company I think doing this. So we as a customer, we do not know, like I think like, oh, they're already like in the market, so the government's already like approve anything that they say in the label. Not always, right? So I think just do a little bit more research about it. Just because it's sustainable, local, organic, they put it in it. You do not always
Believe the label.
believe the label, really. Like,
but I think one of the things that you mentioned could be a good indicator in terms of the number of ingredients on the label, right? And that the reason why it sort of clicked was because me and my husband, we were in the US some months ago, and we picked up bread, and we looked at the label, and it was like maybe like 20-25 ingredients. And we were really surprised.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, like
Yeah.
this doesn't seem right. And
Yeah.
it's probably
Yeah.
why the
Yeah.
bread can be on the shelf
Shelf
for
for
like months and
Yes.
stays.
Yes. Yeah.
And then when we moved
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
Bali, we picked up bread again and
Yeah.
we looked at the label and there's 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
And we're like, wow. And that's also, again, why it can't last too long.
Yes.
But so you're saying that's one of the
Of
indicators
course.
of how
Shelf
processed.
life, yeah, shelf life product, as you mentioned, basically like it's kind of interesting. Some consumer, I want to have something so I can buy in bulk again, overconsumption, so then I can keep it for this certain of months. Like for product that using ingredients, real ingredients without any preservative, let's say,
Yeah.
it will not going to last that long. A food, the best one that we ate will be like the one that you basically pick up your harvest and then like you process immediately in your kitchen and then you cook, you
Yeah.
eat, right?
Yeah.
So within like the food that you cook probably can last maximum 2 days, perhaps 3 days when you put it like in the chiller. So if it's already last that long, there must be something or a certain process that we applied, the producer applied, in order to extend the shelf life.
Are there, like, what are some of the loopholes in testing that happen? The product still reaches the consumer. Nothing comes of it like today. Maybe
Yeah.
it's going to be, like you said, there can be long-term impacts.
Yeah.
There can be other issues,
Yes,
etc.
yes.
What are some of the biggest or most common loopholes in like sort of product safety testing
yeah.
that get sort of neglected and nobody really figures?
For producer, they do not require or it's not a mandatory to submit like the test result or the certificate of analysis for every single production that is there. At the very first, it's the consciousness of the producers, to be honest. Actually,
That's not very reliable.
that's the thing, right? Like, because the only way you know when there is like, let's say, malfunction in your system that creating an issue in food safety and quality. So either the consumer find it or you already find it in your system before it reach the consumer, before it goes out to the company. And then when we talk about the government audit, I mean, as big as the government size, there are limitations in terms of people or officers that accommodate the whole process in terms of supervising and control the food distributions. So I can say even, let's say with Indonesia, you have like one offices, like Indonesian FDA, we call it BPOM, to control the whole 100,000s of company with 100,000s type of products, and all the process still happening only in the capital city in Jakarta.
Right.
So which the amount of the employer officer that handle it, I believe is only like less than like 5,000, I think. So it really a company integrity first, a vision and mission of the company to always produce a safe product, a quality product based on their standard. So when
That's
I
not
said,
very reassuring, Tassa.
I know, but then again, you have this certification, third-party certification that can help in like quality and food safety standard. But then again, as a consumer, as a producer, as a retailer, you will need to really put on your requirement, your guard, basically, to always ask information from the supplier, ask information from the producer where you get the food that you will sell again to your consumer. Asking them to give you a frequent like lab test analysis. Just follow, keep in touch with the government, with the officer, to like what type of like parameters that I should ask to my manufacturers, that I should ask to producers. Welcoming the government that usually conduct like, you know, a site visit and audit as well. Majority, it's always the time that unwanted time, let's say, in a year, right? Because if you scared, it means that you have a whole
Problems.
have problems.
Yeah.
That's always the case, right?
Yeah.
If if you basically already like set and settle, then you allow anyone to come and see the system. So that's the thing, I think. I know it's as you said, it's a bit scary, but you still many company that very integrated. And anyway, when you fail the system, there are also like a fun punishment that it can being processed into
So the
become
regulations
a
are
case.
there,
The regulation is
right? The
there. Yeah.
certifications are
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
etc. The
Yeah.
testing sort of protocols are in place.
Yes.
It still relies heavily on how committed the producer is to
Of
really
course.
making sure they're developing
Correct.
a healthy product.
Correct.
I think one of the things when we talk about organic foods, one of the things that usually comes to mind, like it's something that I think about often, is that, you know, our grandmothers and our mothers, and there was a lot of conversation around certain ingredients. We always relied on healthy foods, and there were certain ingredients that are very popular. So, for instance, you know, turmeric is used as a painkiller in Asia.
Yeah.
But we see that a lot of that is now become like a global phenomenon when we talk about organic food or healthy eating and so on and so forth. And Southeast Asia generally has a lot of these ingredients. But it seems like it was something that we were always talking about in Southeast Asia. But now that the West is talking about it, it's suddenly become like more
Hype.
important and
Yeah.
hyped up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those ingredients that are heavily or abundantly available in Southeast Asia. What is their sort of usage globally? Is there a trend towards people wanting more of those? What are those kind of, want to really understand what those ingredients in Southeast Asia are, and what kind of demand you're seeing for them?
Yeah. What I see, like, when we went to like different kind of expo for food and beverage, and then the trend, many superfood, they call it superfood, super ingredients, as turmeric, ginger, different kind of spices, are actually the one that we can find easily here in Southeast
we've
Asia,
always
like
used them.
Indonesia, in India, in Pakistan, I believe, in Thailand, like everyone used them. I always think that the west part of the world is always the forefront in art of how to tell the story of something, the marketing, the branding of it, right? And then I think it's also just because they don't have like a constant supplies there before, so it's something that is special, limited. So once they have it, and then they also feel the impact, they definitely like, oh wow, this is really good, we have to tell the story about this. Anything that, special edition or limited is always more interesting, I think, compared, and like you tend to forget of something that it's there every day. So it's a little bit more of that. So yeah, so that's interesting. And we in Indonesia, we export a lot of like spices, coconut product. We export a lot of coffee and cacao. Some of these commodities are organic certified as well, and we export it to many different like food manufacturers in Europe, in America, and Australia, and to be used as ingredients to create this clean label products, organic certified products, right? But in Indonesia itself, it's still quite limited, actually.
Really?
Just quite limited, as in then people doesn't really care if it's organic or not, just because it's really already like the part of their product, or it's really just like always the generational wisdom that they know. If you do not really feel well, then you can like drink some jamu kunyit or ginger tea. In Indonesia, we have this herbal medicine we call jamu, which is a blend of different kind of spices and herbs, which now categorized as superfoods: ginger, turmeric, some rice, and curcumin, cardamom, nutmeg. That certain blends give certain impacts. Right, so this is very, very interesting. Even jamu now, to be very honest, we always usually get it in lady sell it directly from house to house, walking with like her basket, fresh made jamu. But if you, because now we are in Bali, yeah, you see in this every cafe hype, they put it in the menu, they put it on tap, they pack it now in a really nice can, really nice bottle with nice branding and everything. Just like, oh, this is now a very cool thing to drink, and you go to like your yoga class, you go to any retreat, they offer that.
Yeah.
Like, and the new generation of Indonesia, just somehow get also like the idea like, oh yeah, okay, actually this is cool, because the west part sort of like try to drinking this thing. So it's kind of interesting to see that actually we already have that cool part since way back.
Right.
It's just it's just how I can say that you can notice here how people can hypen up the story, and it can create such a different movement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting that like you mentioned, there are things that we've been seeing and hearing from our grandparents and elders, which now suddenly have become so cool, and we would sort of disregard them because you're like, who cares about this?
Yeah.
But it's become cool.
One of the trend now in food industry, actually, like functional beverage, we hearing more and more of this type of product now. A product that related to boosting your energy, maintaining or increasing your focus, make your skin brighter, make your hair like softer as well, right? Grow your hair better, and then calming your anxiety, make you sleep better. All these functional beverage product, either ready to drink, either they serve it as a sachet powder that you can easily mix daily within like your tumbler, either any blend that you can put into your coffee. So these products, it looks modern now, but majority of the ingredients that they use are using this superfood ingredients. A lot of like indigenous, they're using of turmeric, not only in Indonesia but also like China, Japan, South Korea, India. A lot of different spices, herbs, plants natively grown within this part of the world, and then they put it and they use it to create this type of like functional beverage that somehow now, if I'm not mistaken, it's already took over around 20% of the market value in the whole global food market.
Right.
Yeah. So it's quite high,
20%
because
is a lot.
Yeah, because people just like with I think just because of the active lifestyle that we have now, dynamic, they're trying to find or to create product where you can easily just like get and like ready to drink, ready to consume. You can just like have it in any time that you want, that you have, either like while you're working and everything, and then easily to carry with you like daily. So, and like it or not, like people always love to have something instant, to get. So they're trying to capture all the goodness within one package, even though, to be very honest, the impact that you get within one package, it might not always going to give the effect, right? Even though you put like, oh yeah, I just want to put the label or the ingredients that I have with all this name of superfood, as long as like I have there in the ingredients, I don't care with the dosage, whether it give it impact or not, but it's there. There as well, like doing like that.
It also goes back to the same organic debate as well,
Yes.
in some ways,
Yeah.
in terms of processed versus naturally grown and unprocessed food.
Yeah.
And you also, I think this, one of the questions I was also thinking about was, there's a lot of stuff that we get in the market, and then particularly I feel like Pakistan and India mostly, but I've also seen Indonesian food is also like really cooked and cooked and cooked and cooked.
Yeah.
What are some things that we're doing in the kitchen with all these amazing
Yeah.
ingredients that might not be healthy or are taking away the actual sort of effect or impact of that
Nutritionals
ingredient?
of that, the active, let's say, agents, the active substance inside of that. Like, how I can say this, majority of this active substance, a lot of them are not really prone to like high temperature. So when we cook it over and over and over again, of course, probably for some of the food, the taste has become better. But again, like when we're talking about macronutrients as well, vitamins and minerals, majority of them are not really prone to like high temperature. So that's why when we talk about eating your vegetables or fresh fruits, raw is the best. You already clean it. As long as it's clean and then you eat it, it's the best form to have. Like for when we talk about like processed food, the same as we apply now. The point why we applied a technology or a process for the food is either to change the form to make it easier to consume just because of like flavor wise, aroma wise, taste wise, and everything, but it's also to make it stay longer so it can have a longer shelf life, right? So for the product, for the common way we cook in the kitchen, I mean, is there any impact of nutrients? Yes, to any fresh vegetables and fresh fruits. But like for the other, you have to cook it, of course, because then let's say for your poultry, your meat, there are several microbia that you want to
Kill.
get rid of, you know, like, so you really have to cook it in like high temperature based on the requirement. So that
One of the things in an earlier answer, you also mentioned beauty products, right? And food and beauty products always had a link. Like, again, going back to my grandmothers and my aunts and so on and so forth, you know, using egg yolk and honey for hair and, you know, stuff like that. But now there's, and I also saw one of your posts about ingestible beauty products.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of the use of these ingredients that are available in Southeast Asia, etc., that are making their way into the beauty industry?
When we're talking about functional beverage with like beauty aspect, the one that very trendy now is like collagen. So ready to drink beverage basically that mix with a certain flavors but also added like collagen. When we talk about collagen in here, you actually have three sources. You can use bovine, you can use like a marine collagen, and the latest one is actually you can use like a type of algae collagen.
Right.
So Indonesia is actually quite a big producer of like a seaweed and algae. I haven't yet found though any producer for a direct plant-based collagen made from algae in Indonesia, but it's more because of majority this algae and seaweed is exported either to China in a dried form, so not yet in the intermediate like goods or ingredient or semi-finished products. I believe this is actually the one that we export. It's become like one of the raw material to be used for these products, right? For these ingredients. The other thing that we usually use also for when we talk about beauty and functional beverage is any fiber drink with that claim to, you know, you keep slim.
We all want that.
Always that. Give like you want to have a brighter skin, you want to be slim, you want to have a healthy long hair. So this kind of like such a very stereotypical beauty standard that unfortunately we still haven't maintained here in Asia, right? a lot of this actually for slim, which is it's more related to like fiber, and then one of the most common ingredient used is psyllium husk. We don't really like, it's not really like a native things, native plants here in Indonesia or in Asia, but a lot of like other ingredients or superfood that they put as well. Usually they either like use cinnamon, they can also still use a little bit like turmeric in terms of like maintaining like immune system. So majority of this product, they sort of like tend to want to mix a couple of different things to give different kind of impacts and highlighting one at the same time. So that's like the quite an interesting one. But for more native or indigenous plants here in Asia, I think those ingredients are the one that use more for like maintaining your immune systems.
Right.
And boosting like your energy. So like ginkgo biloba, and then as well like ginseng, and then you have basically like turmeric as you said, and then you have like a curcumin. So this is the usage of these spices and herbs when we talk about the more native ingredients in here.
I want to talk about sustainability, but before that, I think it would be good to understand how a product gets to my kitchen in the first place, right? Or gets to the shelf in the first place. Can you walk me a little bit through that journey from farm to table or shelf?
Yeah.
Particularly, like I really want to understand, maybe you could just take one product, coffee or sugar or something, and I want to understand how it gets to the shelf. What are the different stakeholders involved? What is the process like, etc. I think that will also help us when we talk about sustainability at each of those stages.
When we talk about sustainability, like we want to make sure that the whole process of supply chain that we have will keep or maintain a good impact or positive impact while we creating those products. The positive impact to whom? Not to only the environment, but also to the people that create it. So when
the producer, consumer,
grower, because sometimes we focus more into like where this ingredients come from. Is it organic? Is it the soil is good? How about the grower? How about the farmers there? About how we source those ingredients, to whom, how many layers it came from. Like let's say we talk about coffee. I want this type of coffee, Arabica. Okay, I need like 10 tons of the green beans of Arabica coffee. Where I can find it? Like I just go to buy to any like middleman, like which, and this middleman, how much I pay to him, but how much the middleman pay to the farmer.
Right.
And then like this farmer, do they own their land, or do they actually like working on someone else's land?
Right.
Like how much of that? So another example that I can tell, that when my experience when working with the organic coconut farmers, selling the coconut, just the fruits, with their making the coconut sugar from the coconut trees using the coconut sap of the coconut flour, and then we just compare like the income that they make, and then like how different it is. Like we can actually increase 2 to 3 to 4 times a month compared than the usual income that they have within a month when they just sell the coconut, or like the dry coconut, the copra. And then we also like since we have the whole change, and then we're working with even the middleman of that let's say a cooperation of farmers that collecting the whole coconut sugar or the coconut sap, we provide them with knowledge on what is the best practice in doing the harvest, or in middle processing this product, or in collecting, in logistic, in hygiene, in sanitation. And then because we also have like a purchase plan, then it's also give them sort of like a plan for their income as well. And then
Right.
it goes back to the farmers, because sometimes they hold the money from the farmers. They ask for us like 100% advance payment, but they have payment terms to their farmers. So this is very important as well, I
I
think,
think one
to
of the
talk
things
about that.
when you're talking about it is it goes back to the commitment of at least one party in the entire process, which would most likely be the larger party or the seller
Yeah,
or
yes,
the larger
yeah,
manufacturer. Their commitment to the entire process
yes,
is truly like you said, in your case, you are making sure that they have that knowledge and that plan, and you
yes,
can see that they're making more money
yeah,
as
yeah,
much as they can
yeah,
possibly, that
yeah,
the payment terms are
yeah,
fair. But it also makes me realize how much really goes into, like, for us it's simple, right? We go
yeah,
to a grocery
yeah,
store and we buy
yes,
a coffee,
yeah,
buy coffee
back,
from there. But so from the farmer who is sort of producing that, and there's so much that goes there in terms of how they're producing it, the
yeah,
ingredients that are
yeah,
going there,
yeah,
the people, the
yeah,
land,
yeah,
so on and so forth.
yeah,
Then that product is purchased by some sort of middleman or a
yeah,
distributor,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then over there, I'm sure there's other processes that go into just that production. Maybe it's some sort of cleaning or what does that process
Not
look
always.
like? Okay.
Sometimes a lot of like when we talk about coffee, middleman just become a middleman,
Right. So
which they
there's no
pick
value add.
basically no value added. They just basically like collecting point,
More for distribution.
more for distributions. And then for the company, this one of this company that really care about how they source their beans, and they really want to preserve the quality from the beginning to the end. Those are the one that, hey, like I want to know, yeah, we're working with middleman, but in this point we will also create, let's say, a sortation point.
Right.
And then we want you, perhaps the wives that help us to sort the beans, we will teach you on work with us for this part of the process.
Right.
So so from the very end, like they not only control and preserve the high standards of the quality of the product that they want to have, like under your brand, but they also like giving back something, not only like opening a new vacancy, like like for the partners, like the wife that probably just there taking care of the home while the husband like work in a farm, like they can have like a more additional income with like doing sorting, with doing like washing the beans, drying the beans as well. And then like you passing on like a better knowledge for them on how to do something.
Right.
So this is sort of like what I say, a more sustainable way, a more ethical way to source. So it's not always, or it's not only about the ingredients, the quality of the ingredients, because I think once you're able to reach the people or the grower, the people behind this ingredient, the one that grow the ingredients, they are the one that knows, they are the one that later like give you the products that you really want,
Yeah.
right? Like they will, like most of the time, loyal. They even were taking care your products even more. They will be happy. They happy because they know that when they do things, or when they do this step, they can have this as
Yeah.
the output, right?
Yeah.
So that's more the whole thing. As
So
I
it's also a little bit of empowering the farmer
Yeah,
to
yeah,
earn more
yeah,
simply by this extra sort of
yeah,
value add that they
yeah,
can create,
yeah,
to just instead of just
yeah, yeah,
producing.
yeah. Some of them, of course, they just happy because they sort of have someone that teach them to the better. But we cannot forget majority. Of course, they happy to add as long as there is a better compensation. Of course, in terms of income or money, perhaps. So
Right.
it's kind of like trigger them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, they of course want to have something if they make more effort. But then it's really proven that that case can really boost or make them more
Productive, perhaps,
productive.
as well.
More productive within the whole process.
We're talking about sustainability, but I think there's just so many layers to sustainability within the food and beverage industry. Like, I want to unpack those layers a little bit. So there's obviously the environment, like you said, use of fertilizers, etc. But there's also like a lot of conversations happening in terms of packaging, in terms of the use of water,
Yes.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what's happening in that space in terms what is changing with all this conversation around sustainability.
When we're talking about packaging, basically, it's still one of the, I think, aspect in the whole food industry that is how I do not say it's behind. It's just with so many consumer packaged goods back in retails, required to be there in the store for certain months because of logistic wise, just because of like sales program, just because inventories. You do need a packaging that can help sustain this shelf life, right, of a product. And unfortunately, not all options can be budget friendly to the producer and then of course to the consumer. Let's say at the moment we've seen a lot of this packaging still made by plastic base, and when we talk about that, up until now, of course, we heard about like recyclable, biorecyclable, and then you also have like a polymer that using like a cassava starch, a rice starch that basically it can dissolve not easily. I mean, it still need to be in a certain temperatures to be able to dissolve naturally, and it still took quite a year to do. And then in a country such as Asia, when we don't really have a proper controlled recycling system, so it's kind of also like still it's still very behind. So that concept, it's not always actually applicable, like it's not always applicable. It's a good sentence to have when people say that, like, oh yeah, we use like from this polymer or like from this starch, like for this, but we don't have a support system yet to actually like make it happen. So, but what I see now, bigger corporation that start to do their like water bottle recycled, or they start to have a collecting point for their like glass bottle, for any glass bottle that they have. The one that using can, they try to recycle it as well. Not always into become the same packaging material, but for other things. So it's good. It's still very, very new. And to be honest, even like in Indonesia, it's like, oh, we want to go through a trendy hype with using like compostable, recyclable packaging material, but I want it to pack my biscuit, Tassa, and then I want to have it like last for this month. So yeah, I at the moment I said like, well, I cannot really give you
Solution for
solution for that because we cannot also have that, because it's such a two different extreme point, like you want to have your packaging material easily recyclable, but then it's still able to hold, because everything that is recyclable, probably made from starch, it cannot hold. It doesn't have any barrier for air, for other substances to goes inside of the packaging to be able to protect the product enough to stand. So yeah, that also one factor that I always trying to like, okay, what is the latest development in it? So once probably we have more information in that, I will get back to you. Yeah, because it's still pretty complicated solution so far.
Like you said, it's not just about the packaging itself, it's also then the entire ecosystem around it in terms of how do you dispose of it and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So there's, when we talk about sustainability, there's the packaging element. What else, what are the other aspects in
So
terms of things that are changing in the food and beverage industry? So that, so sustainable packaging is one. What else can we see in terms of changes?
in sustainability at the moment, besides of organic certifications, then you also taking care about the people as well. So they have a fair trade, including anything related with the feedbacks or like payment conditions to their suppliers, the conditions that they give or they provide the working conditions for their workers as well. There is like a water conservation as well. So there's quite a lot of things, but at the moment, the one that's still very, very focused on is the usage of pesticide and fertilizers, and then just the whole environment. We can go to like B certification as well for that.
Okay. And then again, from a consumer perspective, when I think about this, what are some things that are in my control to encourage sustainable practices, but also to adopt sustainable practices?
The one that I think the very first for me, to be honest, try to just source locally. That's, I think, source locally, and then basically just, if you can, overconsumption. It's just like if you have a proper meal a day and it's a balanced diet, I don't think you need this 100 grams of steak every day, right? Like you have like your protein, you have your fiber components in there, you have your fat, you have your carbohydrate, just like in a balance measured. Then you can find it just as near as possible with your neighborhood. In your neighborhood, you can source it from your local farmer. You can like source it in like I don't know, any closest moms and pops. And then if you can cook, you can. If not, then try to actually like buy more. To be honest, for me, I rather to buy in restaurants or in cafes, like the food, the fresh food, instead of like consume something from the can as well, like a canned food, just because again, like just more food additives inside of it, even though it's of course in the dosage that you are allowable to consume. So for me, it's always about try to reach out the closest and then empower the local sources that you have, because
And do you feel like, I think you've mentioned it a few times, is overconsumption seems to be the root of a lot of problems. Is that?
I think so, because like for me, if anything, just like you consume something, and then that you already like feel enough about it, feel just keep your diet balance. And then I mean, and I think food is always tastes better if we just eat as the right amount, not really like too
I'm not
much.
sure
Yeah.
if I agree. I want
Certain
my
food, like, it's
dessert
like
and I
every,
want
like-
my snack. And
Yeah, of course, but I mean, like, you can always. It doesn't mean that we cannot like have dessert. It doesn't mean that we cannot have snack. But it's like there are, if you have dessert like 5 times a day, I don't think then you will enjoy that dessert as much.
Yeah.
I think there's always like, I'm a sweet tooth, really. Like I actually can start like dessert as a breakfast if I want. Now I'm no longer do that. It's not good, but as long as is balanced, it fills you. It's already makes you satisfaction is quite subjective, but it's actually, you actually know that it's
Enough.
good for a day,
Yeah.
then yeah. I think that's one person. Can you imagine like 7 billion
Yeah,
people
and you're basically
have that? Yeah.
what I understood so far is that because of overconsumption of almost anything in the world, but food specifically, because that's what we're talking about, is that puts pressure on production, and because of that, there's that entire need to process food and make it
More
quicker and faster
more
and bigger
faster.
and
Yes, stay
steroids
longer. Yes.
and all of those
Everything.
things.
Yeah.
And then also going back to sustainability, the
Yeah.
more production there is, the more
Yeah.
waste there
Yeah.
is, the more packaging there
Yeah.
is, the more waste there
Yeah.
is. And cool. I have a lot of questions in terms of plant-based food and all of those things, but
Yeah.
in the interest of time,
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about from the business angle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the F&B industry as a whole. What is the market size? What are the verticals within F&B? Like, what are the different kinds of businesses that exist? And then we'll talk a little bit about if somebody wants to enter the market in particularly APEC region or Indonesia.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the steps? What are the things involved in getting a product to market?
The global market value for F&B by 2024 is already achieved around 80,000 billion US dollar with the compound annual growth rate around 20%. In Indonesia itself, we actually consider as number 4 economic power, and then the middle class growing quite fast now. Food and beverage market has been growing a lot, especially with the support of a lot of different channels or omni channels to sell your products. Yeah, now not only in offline store but also like e-commerce with so many on-demand applications that we have in here, like marketplace that we have in here. So in Indonesia, let's say in general, if we want to start a business in food and beverage, of course it's always like every other business. You see the issue and then you try to solve it, or then you basically bring an issue, an idea. If you don't have it, then you will have an issue. Usually it's like that, right? When you start a business. But when we get the idea, then of course we goes into the feasibility stage. Is it really something that can, let's say, solve our problem, or is it really something that can actually create a problem if a person don't have it? Is it something that people really enjoy? Because remember, like for food can also be subjective. One person can like it, the other person not, right? And then basically feasibility, it means you also need to do market research related with the market target, which consumers that you want to target, what is actually the ingredients, how to make it, pricing wise, what about the supply of these ingredients, what about the supply of the packaging material itself, how do you want to make it, right? Do you want to make it just there in your kitchen? Like, is it going to be feasible until how many months, until how many kilos, until how many thousand units that you can produce it? Or you really need to create a new space? Or let's say you don't really like to make it, you just want to market it because you are more a salesperson. Do you need another third party that can produce it to you? Is it
sort of like cloud kitchen,
a cloud kitchen
concept, or even like outsourcing your
production, a tolling manufacturer or original equipment manufacturer? And then from there, of course, you have to assess, like if there's already like this type of product in the market, who is your competition? What is their like pricing point in the market, right? And then basically, how about you? How you would like to position your product in the market? Is it going to be like just the same competition? Is it going to be the prime market for this, or this is going to be in the low end? You are tend to go more into volume instead of like that niche exclusive profile of the product. So there's always that. And then once you basically ready, then you of course have to go dive to your legalized spec as well. How to deal with the government about the permit and so on. And then basically what is the feasible timeline about to do that? I mean, like, you know that you need this month or this years to develop this product.
Right.
Are these products still going to be like a trend, or like within those time, do you think people still want to buy it, and so on and so on? So that's how it is in Indonesia. Like if you already like thinking about this and you are ready, you already know like either you want to produce it by yourself, as creating your own factory, having your own production facility or your own food factory, or like going through a third party. Then there are still certain rules that you have to go with registering your product, of course, based on Indonesia regulation of food safety standard, which is manufacturing practice that also adopted by other countries, basically. The different point that I can say is in Indonesia, perhaps we are a little bit slower in terms of reviewing the proposal just because of the limitation of resources that the government has. Because Indonesia also, we're quite young, yeah. So the set of regulation for a certain novel ingredients, the new ingredients that probably already acknowledged in the United States or in the Europe, is not always yet recognized already in Indonesia. So sometimes you have to go through another steps to ask the assessment of those ingredients.
What would be some of those ingredients, for example?
Now the one that also very trend is about nootropic product. So nootropic product is a product that consists of these active ingredients that can maintain your emotional healthy as well. Majority of them are actually from mushroom base.
Right.
In Indonesia, there are certain category that you actually have to register your product based on the ingredients that you can use in the product. So some of this mushroom product is not yet recognized to be included into a food
Like an edible
material.
right?
Yes, like an edible, but they are already recognized under traditional medicine. But then if you use that, you will have to do another set of regulations for it. Another thing, even like a very simple thing, cascara coffee. So have you heard about cascara coffee?
I haven't.
So it's actually the skin of a coffee bean.
Right.
You can use it. It also gives sort of like it's almost the same impact with the coffee because it contains caffeine as well. So instead of making it waste, we can make it into become like a tea, or then we can blend it into other. Yes, you can like brew it actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So Indonesia is one of the largest coffee producer in the world as well. So, but up until I think 2 years ago, there are not really any recognition on this cascara coffee allowed to be used or to be put in any food and beverage product ingredient.
Right.
So you have to ask for assessment proposal to assess whether this ingredient is safe enough to be used as an ingredient in any food and beverage product. So that one. So another option is lion's mane. Lion's mane is a mushroom. Usually people use it as a replacement. Many restaurants use it actually to replace meat when you create a burger patty. You can use it. And then other functional ingredients, it's also helped to, if I'm not mistaken, maintain like focus. So people start to use the lion's mane mushrooms in the like as a blend within their tea, within their coffee. So these ingredients already recognized in United States and Europe, but like in Indonesia, it's also just like recently allowed to be used as a ingredients that allowed to be put into food and beverage category.
Right.
So yeah, so just because let's say you want to use a new superfood that happen to be recognized in another country, if you are in Indonesia, we have to go through like
Additional steps.
Right. Yeah, like that, just to
Okay.
cross check, because majority of them are still not yet acknowledged. It's just because the assessment process is not a par with the
Rest of them,
USDA or
right.
the European Commission. Yes.
Right. And in your experience of helping so many sort of entrepreneurs start their business in the F&B industry, what are some of the biggest challenges? Because when I think in any kind of business, you get excited, you start a business, and then the reality hits.
Yes.
What are those ground realities that you've seen in terms of why businesses either fail in the F&B industry here or struggle?
When we're talking about Indonesian markets, there are a few aspects actually. From regulatory, a lot of people think something are grayish in here, right? With regulatory, it's easier. Yes. No, not really.
So that's the first.
So that's the very first that they're usually like they shock, like, really it will take me this long to get like this like
How long does
product.
it take, for instance?
If you go to like food and beverage, let's say, and then the lowest permit that we have in Indonesia, but it's only applied for dry goods. We talk about cookies, we talk about any packaged products, like the dry blend. It takes you around 3 to 4 months. But then when you go to like a liquid product, any like higher product, it can take you like up to like 8-12 months.
Right.
From scratch. So when we talk about
and this is all we're talking about packaged
goods.
right?
Packaged goods.
It's not necessarily
It's
like
not
a restaurant.
necessarily restaurants. Although restaurants, the permit will also perhaps taking around 2-3 months. I think 2 months. 2 months.
Okay.
And depends when you sell alcohol or not, because alcohol is very highly regulated as well in Indonesia, right?
So for packaged goods, you're saying it can take anywhere between 8
to 12 months at least
to get your licensing and sort of permissions and
then ready to sell it to the market, let's say.
Right.
Even though you already like have those products, you still cannot sell it yet.
So this is not about production. This
is
is
not
just
about
the
production.
Permission to sell.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
Okay, I'm not
it's
getting
not
into this business.
for packaged good. Then in second, it's just because like majority of them, when they goes to Indonesia, they come to Bali, and then they see like, oh well, like this lifestyle, and they thought that, other of Indonesia, because seeing Bali is like the best,
It's
and
very
then like
different.
it's very different. So how they marketing the product here, with how to marketing the product in the other part of Indonesia that actually, 265 million, like in Bali, we only probably have 5 million, right? So it's different.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. We had another recording with the founder of Terra Water.
Christine.
Yeah,
right? Christine. Yeah.
And that's exactly what she said. She said, we sold the product in one location and it sold really well. And then we went to another location within Indonesia, but people wanted something entirely different.
Yes.
And so I think that's also, I think that would definitely be one of the biggest challenges of working in a market like this, which is so diverse.
Yes.
Right.
And then with Indonesia, actually, when I said that so diverse, it's not really as diverse as it looks like, just because the bigger part of Indonesia, and this is actually going to be required by all of the other import products that later want to come to Indonesia. the majority of Indonesia are Muslim.
Yeah.
And
So
the
there's other
government
regulations. There's
about halal certification.
Yeah.
And the government of Indonesia is already put a mandatory for every single product that you want to distribute it in Indonesia have to be halal product. The meaning have to be halal product is if you want to be there in the shelf space of the retail with all the majority halal product, that usually the moms in Indonesia, the decision point, the decision maker on which goods that I have to buy for my family. So, like it or not, you want to be in those major shelf market with those other product, then you have to be halal.
Right.
You don't have to be halal, but then
If you
your
wanna be
label,
placed.
yes, in your place, because majority of Indonesia, it's still like a Muslim country. And
Yeah.
then the decision maker, like groceries, moms, the wife, it's still going to be like the first one they decide and see that grocery shelf, right? And due to this religious factor as well, then like when they see like non-halal product, it's already give a different
Yeah.
decision to make. So this is something that they also like, oh, is that really with halal? Yeah, if you, let's say, doesn't really want to, but I always suggested that, are you sure that you want to, let's say, not including that 95% potential market,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Like
Yeah.
it is.
And then also I feel like when a lot of people, and this is my assumption,
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
for instance, when we come to Bali, we see a very diverse kind of, a very different audience altogether.
Yeah.
If you're building a product for that audience, that audience is mostly transient. They're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
long term here.
Yeah.
They move in and out.
One place,
So you
yeah.
primarily, if you're building a product here, you ideally want to do it for the local market, which is more stable
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to say that the tourists aren't a market.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
that's a big part of the Indonesia's
Yes, yeah.
and Bali's particularly economy. But
Yeah.
but I would assume that would, like you said, you want to cater to the larger
Yeah.
market ideally.
I mean, if you are still want to cater the traveler, of course, you can just like sell your product for 1%, but then it just keeps selling. But we already have the experience with the pandemic where no one come
Yeah.
because they can't, just
Yeah.
because easily they can't. And by that time, Bali also heavily related depends to this domestic tourists.
Yeah.
It
Also
yeah,
domestic, yes.
domestic
absolutely.
tourists that like, I mean, some people that live in Jakarta or in other big city in Indonesia, by the time then they just like, okay, I can slow down myself a little bit. Let me try to live in Bali, which they probably never think about before because they always like think Bali is just like a vacation, like it's a flight, an hour flight, easy. But for me to move
is-
from this like big Jakarta hectic lifestyle or the other big city in Indonesia, and no, they can. So, but then when we also adjusted to the global, like a more majority market, I mean like domestic market, you remember that it means we are also still very price sensitive. A lot of market are price sensitive,
Yeah.
right? But like
Especially, I think the food industry is
correct.
relative.
And a lot of these people, let's say, want to create this like, oh, I want to create jamu because I found jamu in Indonesia, right? And then they sell it like a bottle for like 40,000 or 50,000, and want to sell it to Indonesian. While the
Yeah.
Indonesian have it like for 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, like
At home or
at
in-
home within the like. So there are also factors that it's not that like the
So just
Indonesian
because
customers
you find it unique
it
doesn't mean
yes.
the locals will.
correct. And just because you find it this communication way, this marketing way makes it like cool, like wow,
Yeah.
like it's cool. It's for like like the Gen Z or the millennial or like yeah, but like how many of the Gen Z that willing to buy this thing and loyalty as well, yeah. I think because with so many options, like to create the loyal buyer, a loyal user for your product, the repeat buyer, it's not easy because we didn't like, oh, I have this, oh, I have that with that pack that probably like 1,000 rupiah different cheaper. Like that's very common in
Absolutely.
Indonesia market, really.
Yeah.
So you really have to think about where you want to sell. If you want to start with Bali, you can, but definitely once you want to scale your market to the other part of Indonesia, even just to Java, which is 50% of Indonesia's citizens actually living,
Yeah.
then you need to find a new strategy, even like another new branding, another communication that can be understood by Indonesian. And it's not always about the language barrier, just how you
How you communicate
communicate
it.
it
But
so
I'm
they
sure it's
understand.
also, I mean, language is part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's how you perceive things. The
Yes.
way is what you speak is how you
Yeah.
think about things as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
there's certain values and cultural
Yeah.
nuances that sort of
Yeah.
fit into it. So that's
Yeah.
when we're talking about challenges, that's a lot of the market, understanding your user and your
Yes.
market perspective.
Yes.
What about in terms of production itself, in terms of sourcing ingredients, finding the right, is there consistency
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that ingredient
Yeah.
and its
Yeah.
availability, stuff
Yeah.
like that?
Some ingredients, as we mentioned, it can easily source in Indonesia. And production-wise, in terms of when we talk about, let's say you compare production price in States or in Australia or in Europe, like your cost of goods sold from the at least manpower in Indonesia will be more affordable, like
Right.
more lower, like
Yeah.
lower than the one that you have. Ingredients, if it's anything related with, let's say, still a conventional ingredients, because in Indonesia the market with, let's say, a product using flavoring, using synthetic coloring, it's still big, because the
Okay.
majority of the product distributed, like, it's in that type of category. It's still like a very highly processed food. It's still the one that actually,
Gets
people
sold.
can afford it,
Right.
because it's cheaper usually
Right.
compared than this labeled organic certified ingredients that in any gourmet or artisan store or artisan retailer. Yeah.
Right.
That thing, it's no issue to get. But then actually when we want to create a cleaner label with really using an organic certified ingredients, you find like an organic or natural flavor, natural aromatic that you need. Even like when we talk about plant-based drink, let's say, plant-based milk like oat, we don't have the source of oat in here. We have to still import it. So some
And
of the
imports are not very easy, as far as I know.
imports are not very easy. Some are limited, and then the cost, just the
Cost is-
tax,
yeah.
the tax are like pretty like high. And again, it means majority of the production infrastructure are in Java. So if you happen to be in Bali, it would be a challenge because there are not many big manufacturing, there are no really huge industrial area in here. It means to find any support system, such as like part of machine, equipment, maintenance, even anything related with pest control system, and then like even human resources, not
Right.
always available for that specific industry. Bali example, big for hospitality. You can
Yeah.
get even the highest, most experienced people in hospitality, I think, be in Bali, and you can source it in here. But like for manufacturing process is quite a challenge. So yeah, majority of the projects that I'm working with, either we collaborate or we partner with some of the bigger pharmaceutical industry or food manufacturer in a larger scale with the one that in a bigger industrial city. Yeah. With that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tassa. We'll probably need like another version of this
that-
where I
yeah.
can continue all the rest of the
Okay. Thank you, Sana.
Thank you so much.
Ciao. Well, have a good day.